I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Tim Culpan from Bloomberg Gadfly. He's a columnist at Bloomberg, and I think he's well known in this group. Now he's going to be interviewing Shawn Guan from Umbo CV. So Shawn, please take the stage with Tim.
Thank you very much.
Tim, it's all yours.
I'm lucky to recognize a lot of faces here. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're not doing investor pitches, but I will let you have 60 seconds to introduce yourself and your company. But the provision is you may not use the word disruptive, platform, or solution.
All right.
Can you introduce your company without using those three words?
That's going to be a bigger challenge than doing a startup. Okay, so basically what our company does is we build an internet-connected device, that's a camera, and posing big data, and we use that data, we use computer vision and machine learning to teach our system, I didn't say solution, right? I said system. Okay, to teach our system to recognize what's going on. So basically we're trying to teach the machine to recognize the human world, and the purpose of that is to, because we're in the surveillance space for enterprise, and the purpose of that is to replace humans, right? So we want to do the work a lot more efficiently, so businesses don't have to invest so much into labor for people to do the monitoring, and we'll have the machines and the cameras to do the monitoring and just tell human when something's going on.
So the idea would be, you know, those guards who sit in rooms looking at TV monitors will be out of business if you are successful.
They will find something more human to do, because we think that's inhuman to put somebody in front of a monitor for 8 hours a day looking for something that's going on. So to give you an example, there was a big news in Taiwan about a girl getting killed in school, like a young little girl in grade school. Yeah. So the guy actually got through the wall by just jumping over the wall, right? Yeah. So he climbed the wall and jumped over, but there was a security guard and there was a security room with the cameras. But the truth is the guy wasn't there, he wasn't looking. So we actually want the machine to notify him when something like that happened. So we actually help him to do his job a lot better.
Right. Well, anyone who's been in Taiwan a while will remember that case. That would have been a very good sales point for you, I'm sure.
That's a tragic, but we don't like to bring it up, but that's really that's what's happening in the world right now. So
let's go back to some of your own history. So before here, you were at another startup, and before that, you're actually for a brief time at a hardware company. So just give us a quick rundown of the life of Shawn.
Quick life rundown. Okay, so I actually grew up in Taiwan in the suburbs in Hsinchu, right? So I spent about 13 years of my life there, and I moved to Canada for 6 months and moved to the US, and I studied there and I graduated from UC Santa Barbara. So one of the best party school in the world. But anyway, so that was my long story. And after I graduated, I started working for Kista, which is a parent company of BenQ. So it was a giant corporation. I stayed there for about 2 months and found out myself I am not a good fit for a corporation. Because at the time I really want to do something. I want to make an impact, and I want my voice to be heard, and I have a lot of ideas I want to talk about. So I left and joined a startup. So the startup was actually in the same industry that I'm in today. It's in the professional surveillance industry, and they were about 2 years old when I joined them, and they were trying to expand the global market. So they're already been through 0 to 1 that stage, and they were trying to take the company from 1 to 10. And after 5 years, the company actually IPO'd. So I left and started this company.
Right. So it's basically you have a history in startups more than corporates, which is unusual, really, for many Taiwanese, I guess.
Yes, and I still remember there's one incident when I was working for my previous company. They hired a CEO over from HP, general manager from HP, and he was sending out a message to the company, and ideally you don't want anybody to reply to that because you were saying like something's really stupid. So I actually replied, and he replied back and said, that's very interesting to find somebody like that in the company, because in the startup, that's where you see the type of talents and people who wants to work in startup raise their voice, right? They don't just receive information, they actually give you feedbacks. So.
That's something that I want to expand on. The culture, of course, is something that comes up a lot in Taiwan and in Asia. I think anyone who's traveled around the region would know that Taipei, for example, is hugely different to Beijing, different to Hong Kong. Japan, of course, is a case study in itself. You've got this, and of course, you've got the US perspective, having spent so much time there and going to college there. In the two startups that you've been at, which have basically been Taiwanese startups, what are the kind of cultural differences working within a Taiwanese startup versus, say, a US startup or another startup?
The startup I used to work for is very, very conservative. I mean, they're a lot more conservative than a lot of the foreign startups, where, especially if you compare the US, they want to spend the money to make the money, right? But the startup I used to work for wants to spend very little money and make a lot of money, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it's hard, but you can do that, but it takes a long time. So they're basically trading time with money. I think that's one lesson I learned from the previous work I did is when you are already seeing, you found a product market fit, and you know you can scale, you know the customer wants this, and it's time to raise money and just hit it hard. So at the time, they were still very conservative, even though they already found the product market fit. So they know people want it, people were buying it, but they were just taking their time, not investing a lot, not raising money. So, but eventually they got to IPO, but I thought they could be a lot bigger than today if they raised.
Do you think speed is really that critically important in Taiwan? Is it different in Taiwan compared to elsewhere? Obviously in the US, speed is very important. We also know that in Beijing, people iterate very, very quickly there. Is Taiwanese startup scene just a little bit slow in terms of the way startups iterate and move in terms of funding and product introduction and so forth?
Okay, yes, that's a difficult question, but I think Taiwan startup needs to move super fast. I always think speed is almost the number one thing. If you cannot iterate fast enough, you cannot get clarity fast enough, you will not be able to compete, because we all know no idea is unique. The only thing unique is your team. If your team cannot move fast, you're gonna fall off and competition is gonna catch up. And that's what I've seen in the past. So I'm really care about speed this time.
So when you left a startup to really start this new startup, your own, what were the considerations that were going through your mind to move on? It is a big leap. Some people have made that leap, and anyone who's been an entrepreneur must have had that kind of fear of failure or that nervousness as well as the excitement. So what were the considerations? Was finding a team to go with you a big concern for you at the time?
I think it's to find people who can still share the same idea, because the previous company I worked for, when it got to IPO stage, company grew really a lot bigger. So it got to 200 plus people when I left. And the idea just doesn't get through fast enough. And you don't get as much clarity from the market at that point. So I think that's where the company was heading a little different than what I think it should do. So I want to start a company that can actually focus on doing that, just gain clarity of the market at all times, at every single stage.
Did you bring people with you?
I didn't.
No.
Actually, I purposely stayed away from having to talk to any previous co-workers at the time. So I actually went out and look. So I actually spent 6 months when I left, and I spent 6 months doing nothing, not building products, but just looking for people. 6 months.
So how many people do you have now?
We have close to about 20 people now.
Right. So it's starting to get a size that management matters.
Yes, and I think a lot of people who we actually end up hiring is the guy we actually talked to, because during those 6 months, so 6 months I was just on LinkedIn. I was just on Facebook pages and groups, embedded system groups, computer vision groups, all this group just poaching people and asking them questions. And actually, because I was in Taiwan at the time, and I booked a trip in the US to meet with a lot of engineers from Google, Facebook, who worked on computer vision projects in the past, and to see if my product was feasible, if the technology is there. But a lot of those people actually came back, and some of those people I talked to a year ago wanted to work for us now. So actually building that up was very important for us to get talents, continue to get talents.
So tell us more about the challenge of getting talent, because at the end of the day, it's all about talent. There's nothing else matters. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the talent, you're going nowhere. So what are the challenges you faced?
Okay, I can tell you what's going on today. We are hiring today, but some of the talents, I think if you look at Silicon Valley, right, you look at the talents, a lot of talents actually coming out of schools. Okay, so we spend a lot of time in schools and trying to get the talents from the school, but when they graduate, so we get really good quality interns, for example, but when they graduate, they want to go and study abroad. They want to go study their masters. They want the opportunity to see the world. So that's what they have been exposed to growing up. So for 5 to 10 years, their mindset was in corporations, going abroad, study abroad. So those talents are leaving the country, which I think is really, really unfortunate.
But they could come and work for you and get on-the-job training, right? I mean, real-life training is where it could come in, right?
Yes, I think definitely. And I think as the founder of the startup in Taiwan, you just have to spend a lot more time talking to these people and tell them, hey, look, here's an opportunity that's pretty rare. And it can be really, really good for you. And you can always study later, right? If you want to.
Talented.
You can study online. You can take course from Stanford.
A lot of people do into their 30s. They actually quit their job and go on and study as kind of like a mid-career break. So we're out of time. We do have time for a few questions, yeah. I know I'm the professional question asker. I've made a career of it, but I will open up to some people. Ooh, we have a first question there, so go ahead. Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Eric Kong from Conley Venture, a subsidiary of AO. So my question is, in terms of jumping up your previous company, Kidstar, which is we are some kind of subsidiary. I'm from AO. So there is also innovation or incubation center from the industrial side. So what's the difference? Why don't you consider using this way, use the industrial support, like you give a proposal to your director, your boss, then you give your project starting doing that instead of you just jump up the corporate and you start the startups. What's the difference and why do you choose the latter way?
So let me clarify the question. Are you saying why don't I use the resource like previously built from the industry?
Yes.
Okay, so there are two parts of that. I think the first part is the talents, right? Because you already know people who can build the product, and you already know the customer base and, or let's say supplier base for you to build the product. So I think in a sense I used on the supplier side, I de-utilized some of my previous relationships. But as far as talent acquisition, because I think that's I just purposely stayed away because I have a really, really good relationship with the founders of my previous company. But I think maybe the correct way of doing it is just to talk to the guys who used to work with you. So I can't tell you right now was it the right thing or the wrong thing? But I don't want to burn any bridges at the time.
Yeah, fair point. One more question. One more. Going once, going twice. Nope. So
Okay.
everybody knows all they need to know about you. One final chance. Since you're up on stage, how can people find you? You've got a URL. What's your Twitter handle? Your Weixin? What's the best place to hunt you down?
We have a Facebook, we have a website, and to hunt me down, just talk to me
All
afterwards.
right, face-to-face communication. Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you. Back to
Thank
you,
you
Rebecca.
so much. That was terrific.